All right, let's go ahead and run once again here to see where we're at. Okay, big bond. There we go. Just add a few things here, and let's say to do, and there we go. So everything is looking good. Now we're gonna go and attach an event listener to our delete button here. That way when we can delete this item from database and also remove it from our list view here. Okay. All right, so now we do understand that this is actually not a button per se, it's an image view. So we have to use a different kind of event listener for this to work properly. So right inside of our cell controller, where we are establishing the labels and description and so forth, we are going to also go ahead and get the delete button here. Okay, I'm gonna go say delete button. I'm gonna say .set on mouse clicked. Okay, and I have to pass here a lambda event handler. So to start with, let's go ahead and delete the item from the list view. Okay, the cell view here. Now, since we know we are inheriting from our list cell, there's a few functions or methods that we have available for us to use. The one is actually get list view. So we can go ahead and say get list view as such. You can see, okay, I can say .get items. Okay, so we're getting items inside of our list view, this list view here, and I can say .remove. Right, there's different flavors of remove. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and pass in an object, and I'm going to say get item. Okay, so this will do, it'll just remove the item that is clicked, right? In this case, when we click delete, it's going to get this current item and remove it. Now to see this actually working, if I run again, I'm going to keep going and add, and if I go delete, look at that. We are getting rid of items, right? So go delete, you see that things are changing. I can keep deleting. Now I'm keep deleting, keep going. Notice that now I only have 2 left. Of course, we're just deleting the rows from our list view. If we were to run again, this will repopulate again, okay? Because we're not deleting anything from our database, which is what we're gonna be doing next, okay? So the idea here is to keep this animation going. So when we delete, this deletes the row, but also deletes from our database. Right, so for that to happen, we need to go back to our database handler here, and we need to create another method. Let me go ahead and fold all of this code that we already have used and know that give us a little more space here. Okay, at the top here, I'm going to say delete task. All right, I'm going to say public void delete task. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and pass int user ID as such. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a string query here. It's going to be simple because cell delete delete from, I'm going to pass in the call constants task table. Okay, that's to be, let's see, task table plus where user plus I'm going to say constant dot user ID plus exclamation mark like that. Okay, there we go. We've done this a few times. In fact, we can borrow a few things somewhere. Okay, so next I'm going to go and say prepared statements. Prepared statements is equal to connection or db get connection such dot prepare statement. I'm going to pass our query. And as you know by now, we need to let's add a signature. There we go. Okay. And once we have that, what are we going to do? I'm going to say prepared statement that's set int. Okay. Index 1, we're going to pass our user ID. Okay. And then we're going to say prepared statement, execute like that, and then prepare statement, we're going to call close. Okay. And that's it. So now when we call, make this delete task. That's like this. All right, so now that if I save this and call this delete task, I'm going to pass a user ID, and we should be able to delete from our tasks table where user's ID is equal to whatever we're passing. Let's go ahead and go back to our cell controller here. And at the top, I am going to say private database handler as such, and inside here I'm going to say database handler is equal to new database handler as such, and then I'm going to say database handler dot delete task. I'm going to pass user ID. Say add item controller dot user ID. Have to surround because things could go wrong. Okay. This user ID we're getting from our add item controller again. All right, so let's see if this works. Let's go. Okay, let's see if this works. Delete. Let's see if that deleted from our database. Let's go to, this has to be James Bond, so it's going to be 2. All right, it looks like we're deleting everything. Okay, so if I go like this, looks like I delete exactly everything, right? So let's keep adding. Let's a few new items here for my user here. Let's see, newest item, hello world. I'm going to save. There we go. If I refresh, James has a new item. Let's add a few more. Save the world, hello world, save, and he should have 2 items. So the problem here is that as I add or try to delete, the way we put things here in our database handler, we're just deleting everything, right? Because that's what we said here, but it's not the intention. We don't want to delete everything. We just want to delete this specific item that we've just clicked. Now to make this more specific, because obviously we don't want the users to, when they delete one item, for them to delete everything in that database. That's not what we're going for. What we want to do, we want to make sure that we're very specific at what we're deleting. So we want to say delete everything that has user ID 2 and task ID. So we need to fetch this task ID when we pass into our cell control here, cell controller, right? So when we actually pass the delete task inside our database handler, we also have to say and user and task ID. We have to pass a task ID to be more specific, which means here we have to say int task ID. And say plus and plus constant task ID plus is equal exclamation, like this. So I'm going to copy this and paste it in. This is going to be the second one, which is going to be our task ID. The problem we have inside of our cell controller here is that we have a problem because we have to pass another parameter. But the issue here is that we need to get that task ID from our task, okay? Because we need to specify it and make sure that we pass the task ID, right? We have to change there. So that means also we have to copy this prepare statement here to account for our task ID, because that's where we're passing. We pass the user ID and we're passing the task ID in that order. Now, how do we get this task ID? Because if you go to our list controller here where we're creating our object, we're setting the task, we're setting the date created, the description, and everything. So now here we can easily go ahead and say task dot set task ID, and we don't have that. So that means we have to go back to our task object or task class and create another private int here. We're going to call this task ID, just such. And we're gonna go here, say command N, getters and setters. We want test ID, and there we go. So now we go back here. We can go ahead and say set gotta be task, not task. Let's get rid of this, redo it again, that way. Task, such, all right. Command N, getters and setters. There we go. So this row here, we can say set task ID, and we're gonna say result, because we know our result set here has all of these row here, okay? So we're gonna get set dot get int, because we're getting an integer. The ID, the task ID is indeed an integer, and then we're gonna say here task ID, okay? So our object now, as we create here, each time that we create a new object, a new task, we're gonna add also the task, set the task ID. Which means if we go to controller now, obviously we have to pass another parameter here, which is going to be our task ID. But the good thing here is at the top here, I can go ahead and say, for instance, int task ID is equal to what? Is equal to my task, which is the object that we created here, we're passing, right? As we update, I can say dot get task ID. And I take this task ID and I pass it in here, and problem solved, folks. Because now the database, we are passing the user ID and the task ID, which is exactly what we said, what we need here. So we're going to pass the user ID, where user ID is, let's say 1, and the task ID has to be. That way, we're going to be able to delete a specific row as opposed to deleting all of the tasks where user ID is a certain number, which we saw was a huge disaster because we ended up deleting everything. And next thing I notice I have an issue here. This has to be 2, right? Because we have the first index and the second index. Okay. I'm going to save this. Let's go and run once again. I'm running this query here. Select all from tasks where user ID is 2. This is for James Bond. So we have a few James Bond here. Now we're going to go and get, for instance, where user ID is 2 each time we delete, but also we check in to make sure that we are deleting the correct task ID. Right? Okay, let's try this. This is going to be J Bond. Okay, there we go. Let's add a task here. Another task. Okay, let's just go straight. All right, so this is the moment of truth here, okay? Delete that. So let's see. We are going to delete this one, help the world. Let's refresh this. Where is the help the world? Help the world is up there. Let's delete it. Okay, let's see if that happens. So that was 77, right? I'm going to refresh, and we should get rid of the 77 here. Look at that. It's gone, right? So now we have messy boy. Let's see. And let's refresh. Messy boy is gone. Now we have ride my new bike. Right? And refresh, and we are deleting. Keep deleting. And refresh. You notice we are indeed deleting. Okay, so now this is how it's supposed to be, because now we are specifying saying user ID has to be this, but also the task ID has to be this. Otherwise, we delete everything from our task database pertaining to that user, and that's not what we want at all. All right, so I know it's a lot that I'm throwing at you here, but I do this on purpose because I want to give you the full spectrum on how to develop a full functioning application in JavaFX. So I'll see you in the next video where we will then work on adding tasks from here. And as we add those tasks, we want to be able to show them automatically to the right here in our list view. Okay, I'll see you in a bit.